Hello, my name is Connie MacFarlane and this is a video tutorial for Splitcoaststampers. Today I'd like to share a technique with you that I call hot glue embossing, and it's a nice way to add some texture and dimension to your card. So let's get started. What you'll need is a hot glue gun, of course, a piece of watercolor paper 2 inches by 3 inches. This is a 90-pound weight watercolor paper. You can use pretty much any kind that you like. And you will also need a piercing tool. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run 2 lines of glue across the piece of the panel. And you want your glue to be hot and running freely. Then, working quickly, take your piercing tool and run it through the glue from top to bottom, pulling the glue down with it. And you'll do this make as many lines in this as you like. As your glue starts to harden, it makes it more difficult. So we'll take this piece and we'll set it aside. You may get some of those long thready bits from the hot glue gun. It's up to you. You can leave those on your piece or you can pull them off. Now while that's cooling, I'm going to show you a couple of other ways of applying glue to the watercolor panel. So the first one I'm going to show you is the one that I used on this card, and I call it a raised edge circle. And to create that, you need to put a drop of glue on your watercolor paper, and then take a flat, cold surface. This is a roofing nail that I found, and press down into the circle. Now your surface has to be cold, so I've rested this roofing nail on an ice cube. As the circle starts to cool down, it will close in a bit on itself, so if you don't like that look, you can impress it one more time with your roofing nail. If you don't have a roofing nail, anything with a smooth flat surface will work, as long as you cool it down. If you don't cool it down, it'll just stick to the hot glue. Another way of applying glue to your watercolor paper is circles as well, but these will be flat circles. And in order to do that, you need to apply a drop of glue again. Then take the flat surface of an ice cube and just press straight down onto it. And that'll give you a nice, smooth, flat circle. And these can be any size, depending upon the amount of glue that you place on the panel. Another fun way to add glue to the panel is one that I used on this particular card here. And basically all that you do with this is let the glue drizzle onto your piece of watercolor paper. So this is a 3x3 piece. I attached it to a 5x5 card base. Now my glue might be a little bit too hot for this. If the glue is too hot, it dribbles out quite thin. So we'll see. Usually you hold it about 4 to 6 inches above your watercolor paper. And I usually allow the first fairly large drop to drop down, and then just allow the glue to come out of the glue gun and just sort of move your hand slightly and create a design that way. As you can see, this came out quite fine, and it probably won't hold up to the heat embossing that we're going to do. And the reason for that is that my glue was almost too hot for this. So if you want to apply the glue in this way, you'll want to just have had your glue gun plugged in and the glue just starting to come out, or in this case I would unplug my glue gun and let it cool down just a bit. But you get the idea. It makes a really nice design. All right, so now that we have applied the glue to the watercolor paper, our next step is going to be to heat emboss this piece. So for that you will need a heat tool and you will need some embossing powder. And I'm using black here, and I've just put it in a small container to make it easier. Now, when you apply the glue, it remains tacky for quite a long time. So conceivably you could have heat embossed this piece immediately after applying the glue. And all I can suggest to you is you can try different ways of doing it. I like to allow my designs to cool down a bit, because when you apply the embossing powder and the heat tool, that glue is going to heat up again. And if the glue is already warm and then you apply the heat tool, you may lose some of your design. So it's totally up to you. You can play around with that and see how it works out. If you have allowed your design to cool down, simply turn on your heat tool. I'm just going to warm it up a bit. And just hit the glue for about 3 to 4 seconds, just enough to warm it up a bit and make it tacky. Then take your embossing powder and we will heat this again. There we go. So you heat that until your embossing powder is completely set and let that cool down. Now I just wanted to show you one little thing here. On this particular piece, I actually added some glitter. So about 3/4 of the way through heating your embossing powder, sprinkle it with some glitter and tap off the excess, and the glitter becomes embedded in the embossing powder and actually is a nice effect. I really like it. All right. Now the next thing we're going to do for this piece is we're going to add some color to it with our re-inkers. So for this step, you will need a waterproof surface, and this is a craft mat, which is a waterproof surface. However, I need to move my piece out of the way once I'm done. So I'm actually going to work on a piece of freezer paper, and then I'll be able to move this out of the way. So you will also need a palette or something to put your re-inkers in, a container with water, a water mister, a paintbrush, and some re-inkers. Today I'm using Distress re-inkers from Ranger, and they work really well with this. You can also use regular dye inks as well, Stampin' Up, Close to My Heart, any of those. You'll get slightly different results. The Distress re-inkers tend to blend and move more easily and keep their true color, whereas the water-based dye inks, such as this, tend to separate out into their colors and fade a bit more. But they all do work in their own way, and I think you'll be happy with the results of either one. So the first thing we're going to do is put some of the re-inkers here into my palette. So I have some antique linen, wild honey, field paint, and broken china. All right. So the first thing you'll do is with your water mister, you're going to liberally spray the piece of watercolor paper until it's completely saturated with water. We're going to actually float the reinkers in that water, so you want them to mix, move, and blend. So we'll spray this till it's good and wet. Then with your wet paintbrush, pick up the first color, the antique linen. I'm just going to touch it to the top here. You see how it just sort of floating in the water. Then we'll add some wild honey. Don't worry too much about where your ink is going. It's going to change as we work with this, and we add some more water to it as well. And then I'm going to focus the broken china mostly at the bottom here. Just sort of daub it on. May have to add more color. All right, and then I'm going to spray it one more time. And this will make the colors blend a little more. If you like, at this point, you can pick the piece up and move it around a bit. Or you can just continue to add some more color. I think I'll add a little more blue to the sides here. The nice thing about this is that every single one that you do is going to turn out really differently. And as they dry, it's kind of fun to see what your end result is going to be. So once you're satisfied with the amount of ink that you've applied, there we go, we'll just set that aside, and you need to allow this to completely dry. Don't put paper towel underneath it, because if you do, it's just going to absorb a lot of your color, and your piece itself will actually become quite faded. So I'm just going to set this over here. So now once your piece is completely dried, usually I allow it to dry overnight. As you can see, it's slightly warped. A heavier watercolor paper will warp less, but this works just fine. So you want to take a piece of heavy cardstock, slightly smaller than your piece. So this is 1 15/16 by 2 15/16, and you're going to glue this to the back. Also, what you do at this stage is take a paper towel and just wipe over your embossing, and it will lift any of the ink that may have be sitting on your embossing. The embossing resists the ink. So I'll just take some adhesive, and I'm going to apply it to the back of my panel. And that's just going to give it a little more stability. There we go. And there's your finished art panel. And you can just attach it to a standard A2 card base in the center here, and you can apply a sentiment. You can put it off to the side. There's a lot of things you can do with these little art panels. So I'll show you my final card again. And there we go. Thank you for joining me today. That's hot glue embossing, and I can't wait to see what you come up with. Please come and visit me at Paper Pleats and Ribbon Roses. Thanks, and have a great day.